Hello, this is Red Fox Talks, our second episode. I'm actually pretty glad for. We did get a couple of views on the first episode.
Nice.
So far, we're taking a total of 10 views and 2 likes, which,
Hey,
as
man.
far as I'm concerned, for a first episode, that's not bad.
That is double digits. That is so sick.
And both of them are from Geeks and Gamers, so I want to thank the 199.
Thank you very much.
So, speaking of entertainment stuff, I actually want to go into a little bit about the actors' strike that's still going on, because
Oh,
one of the
yeah.
things with the after this next week, if they're not resolved, they will be taking a break in quotes from negotiating until spring or until next year.
Oh, so does that mean they go back to work?
Nope. That means pretty much the entire fall and winter TV schedules are screwed unless they're already shot.
Holy cow. So they just said that they're walking away from the table for a couple months,
Yep.
and that's it.
Now here's the thing. Now, do you know who's in charge of SAG, the Screen Actors Guild?
No, I'm not. Oh, Fran Drescher.
Yeah,
Isn't
the
it Fran
fucking
Drescher?
nanny.
Yeah, dude, it's Fran Drescher. I forgot about
Yeah, it's Fran
that.
Drescher, and I can't remember the other person's name. It's They're one of those people that has like 3 names. It's kind of weird.
uh, Three named, I don't know.
I don't know, they have a hyphen last name. It's one of those people.
A hyphenated last name? Is it because it comes from a nationality or because they
I don't
got
recall.
married and they're sharing their wife's name?
I don't recall. All I know is these people have no idea what the hell they're doing.
Obviously.
Right, so I have an article up here from Vanity Fair, and this came out the 24th, so a little 5 days ago. But none of the agreements have changed. So generally, what the Actors Guild wanted, or I should say, the Screen Actors Guild, or that not the Screen Actors Guild, the Screenwriters Guild of America and the Directors Guild of America have both settled their strikes with the same deal. They both got raises and all kinds of other demands that they wanted, including AI protections and monitoring, I guess it is. Basically,
From
it's
what?
the way they want to use AI is they want to use it as sort of like an editing and idea generator and not something that can work completely independently on its own.
Interesting. From what I understand, though, that there's a time limit on that, though, and however many years that they'll renegotiate the deal, or that there's like an expiration date on their ability to use AI and stuff. And if they own, like, if they legally own the rights to your image and stuff like that, that they can use you not just while you're still alive, but after you're dead, and use you as a digital face and backgrounds
Yeah,
and
that's one
stuff
of the
like
things
that.
for that SAG-AFTRA was striking about was
Yeah,
protection of intellectual and personal property, which it
indeed.
makes sense. But the
Yeah,
other
who?
stuff, it was all about financial stuff, raises and protections and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So one of them is they were just about done. They had everything agreed to, like it was all good to go. Everything was set, and then they decided, oh, by the way, we have one more demand. We want a $1 levy on every streaming services subscriber.
Ooh.
Now, keep in
That's a,
mind, most of these streaming services are all over the planet. Like, just look at like Netflix; they have servers everywhere.
indeed. Yeah, that
So
I would
if
say
they
that would
want
disproportionately
$1
affect Netflix.
going to the guild per subscriber to a streaming service,
Man.
and yeah, the producers and everyone else in Hollywood said, no, because that's idiotic.
That
In fact, it's right
seems pretty
here.
intense.
Where is it? Sorry, I got to go through the article again.
Hmm. No worries.
but they
I'm.
essentially call it a bridge too far.
That seems like a lot of money. I
I mean,
mean,
it is.
the thing that I'm most interested about, less about the strike and all the rest of this stuff and the politics involved, is more what I want to see is the actual streaming numbers if they actually come out. Because as from what I understand, as part of this deal is because the streaming services can keep all of their numbers in house and it's not released to the public or to any of these people. Like nobody knows how many when they make a movie, how many times it's been seen on Netflix. Netflix just tells them, "Oh, it did good or it did bad."
Well, they
So what
have
I'm
general numbers based on different sites like Samba TV. Their whole thing is they count how many households have watched something, and that's how they count their numbers apparently.
Oh, interesting. I did
So
not
let's
know
say
about
a
that.
show came out on Samba TV and like a million people viewed in. They count
Hmm.
that as 1 million views. They don't count it by time or how many people or how long people watched. It was we have this amount of people who watched the show. Not we
Hmm.
have this amount of people who watched 10% of the show.
Yeah. That's that's interesting. I'm just more curious to actually see some of those hard numbers in comparison to like some of the TV ratings and stuff because it's a card that they've held close to their chest for a long time and we haven't been able to see a full scope of like how much content that they're actually delivering. I mean, there's some interesting things like the amount of data traffic that's on the internet that's just purely Netflix. I forget a couple of years ago it was like 45% of all internet traffic was Netflix for
Yeah, and
streaming.
they're still apparently a bunch of them have come forward. You know, a lot of the companies have come forward and saying, "Hey, this is how well we're doing. This is general numbers on how our on different programs." They're being a little more transparent now, but I'm not sure if that was because of an agreement or if they just kind of realized, "Hey, wait a minute, people don't really like the fact that we keep holding stuff back." And it's probably in our best interest to tell them, hey, this show's doing really well. Maybe go watch it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that their shareholders actually want to know because
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sure
they
to a
definitely
certain
want to
degree they
know.
know. Yeah,
I mean,
they
look at
I mean
like
they
what happened with Ahsoka and Loki. I mean, they started out not that great, and they went down from there.
Yeah, I don't know how Disney put so much money behind those shows
They
and
really don't
then
look like it.
nobody's watching. Well,
Considering
what I mean
apparently
is
the last episode of Loki was running around in hallways and then an explosion, and that was the episode.
it was an episode of Supernatural essentially. You're like, was this
At
made by
least
the
Supernatural
CW?
has good effects.
Yeah, they redecorate the every set like 12 times. Um, well, it's just what I found interesting about the amount of money that they are spending per episode bleh, per movie is insane. When there's these $300 million budgets or the amount that they're spending per episode, and you're not getting the kind of quality that you would say season 5 of Game of Thrones with the Battle of Bastards, where it's an unbelievable scene of television watching a battle play out, and you're like, oh, obviously that's where they spent their money, like the bulk of their money for this episode, and it paid off, and it was really visually satisfying. And then you see these bloated budgets now and a movie like The Creator, which just recently came out, and they did some guerrilla filming tactics where it was cheaper to send people in crews of like 5 to 10 to go film scenes all around the world using real backdrops for the shots instead of paying a company to render them in CGI later and the paint in the details and then to have to do so instead what they did was just add little things because it's a sci-fi movie, The Creator. They added all these robots and some other things, but the way that they did it was conscious. The way that they filmed it was very conscious of how they were going to use their special effects. So from what I understand, it looks like a $300 million movie, but they paid about 80 million to get it done,
I
which is
think that comes
insane.
down to directors and actors and set designers actually knowing, hey, let's all the money we have, let's put it on the screen. Let's make it look
Well,
good.
isn't it unbelievable when you see things like the amount of money that they spent to make something like Terminator 2, and even with inflation and the amount of the value of money, the difference and what a dollar was in 1992 when they filmed Terminator 2 versus now. Still, it was the one of the biggest budget movies of all time at that point, and what they produced was something that still holds up extremely well. And there's no CGI in it other than some of the very very early stuff, which works very very well. And they filmed around that, and that's because James Cameron's a pioneer. It's absolutely insane. I love it.
Yeah, James Cameron. I mean, he was the guy who was essentially, hey, none of the guys want to do this helicopter shot that you have planned. Give me the camera. I'll do it myself.
Yeah, the guy behind the camera wouldn't do it, so he actually got in the helicopter and did that scene under the highway overpass in Terminator 2. Oh, that's such an amazing shot. One thing I actually saw, or I listened to rather, an interview with Michael Biehn, the actor who played Kyle Reese in the original Terminator, and he
Nice.
said that when yeah, that dude's amazing, and he's also from what I found out is super good friends with Doug Stanhope, one of the filthiest stand-up comedians of all time, one of my personal favorites, because they're both living in Bisbee, Arizona, so they hang out, which is hilarious, dude. Kyle Reese and Doug Stanhope is unbelievable. Anyway, in this podcast, he said that he had finished doing Terminator, and he was also in The Abyss, and I believe it was before that. That he walked into James Cameron's office, and he had two scripts out on his desk that he was working on that were already completed, and he asked him, "What were those? What are these two scripts that you're working on?" And he said, "Oh, this one's called Avatar, and this one's called Alita Battle Angel." And he's like, "Oh, fucking wild. Okay, cool." And he's like, "Yeah, I can't make these now. It's going to take a while, and then I'll make them later." And he handed off Alita Battle Angel to the director Robert Rodriguez, who incidentally made From Dusk Till Dawn and Spy Kids.
Yeah.
What a wild director! And
Yeah, it's
it's a
kind of
pretty
weird
fun
when you
movie.
look at what movies directors have done. Like the director who did Hard Candy and 30 Days of Night also did the second Twilight movie.
Dude, say what? I didn't know that that was the same person. Did
Yep.
all of those? Hard Candy
Yeah.
and the second Twilight?
Yeah. If
Dude,
Adam from YMS brought it up when they were doing their Adam and Pals watching of the Twilight series.
oh my god,
It's
Hard
like this is the
Candy's a
same director who
wild
did
movie.
Hard Candy and 30 Days of Night. Also did the second movie in the Twilight saga.
Okay, you are blowing my mind right now that the guy who did 30 Days a Night also did Hard Candy. That is so wild. Those are completely different kinds of movies. That is so man. I like both of those. And that Twilight. I've just got to stop and absorb what you're telling me right now, Fox. That's a lot to take in. That's unbelievable. I thought I was gonna blow you away with telling you that Michael Biehn knew about Alita Battle Angel in the '90s. You're like, by the way, dude, check that out. Wow, that's wild.
And I also apparently Disney never released the actual amount it took to make Ahsoka. At least one episode, they don't have anything that had like a per episode basis, but it's estimated to have been more than 100 million.
Well, anything that uses that stage, what do they call that? That production stage where they use it has a dynamic background that's made up of different TV screens, and where the camera is will actually shift focus on these TV screens in the background, and then so that's how they're able to film a lot of those really interesting scenes in The Mandalorian and some of the other ones that actually have.
We
It's a
actually do
volume
have the
studio.
budget for Mandalorian. It cost 15 million per episode to make the Mandalorian. So they put
I
more
remember
money apparently into 8 episodes of Ahsoka than 3 seasons of the Mandalorian.
that's insane. It was blowing people's minds when they were spending 10 mil an episode on Game of Thrones. And at least you got 10 an episode or 10 a season when they did those back in the day. That's crazy. 15 mil, and then they spent more on Ahsoka. That's crazy.
Yeah, and they haven't even disclosed the actual numbers for Ahsoka, except that, we just know it's extremely expensive for them, and nobody watched it.
That's like that Batgirl movie that they spent all that money on and then they never ended up releasing. It's like, dude, how do you just how do they just stomach these costs like that? I mean, at the end of the
Well,
day,
with
I,
if I recall correctly, Warner Brothers wrote off the Batwoman movie as a tax write-off because it failed. They didn't even put it out. They just, you know what, this is horrible. Let's at least get something back on it.
yeah, poor Nathan Fillion. I'm sure he got paid to be in that movie because from what I understand, he was the bad guy. But
Yeah, that would have been
poor
interesting.
Nathan Fillion.
I mean, at this
I
point, it
might have
couldn't have
watched
been
it.
worse than the CW show.
oh, oh man, that show was terrible.
Yeah, that
Oh
was
man,
problematic to say the least.
not as bad as this new Robin Hood
Oh
that
God,
you told
no.
me about.
Director
I
X.
am when you when
I
you were telling me about this, I was like, "There's no way what you're saying is real. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard in my entire life." I was like, "That's farcical. Is this something from like? Is this some sort of fever dream that you had or something? What
I
is
wish.
this?"
If it was a fever dream of mine, at least it wouldn't be costing taxpayers in Canada tons of money.
Oh my god, dude, that's hilarious.
And the
Oh,
guy's name
that's
is
so funny.
Director X. I mean, come on.
Director X?
Yeah,
Is that like a serial killer X from Condemned?
I
It's just
wish. It would have been more interesting.
or Racer X, dude. We do Speed Racer.
Yes.
Oh man, Rex Racer,
It would have been
Racer X.
far more interesting.
Oh, dude, what other character? Compound. What was it? Compound X. What in Powerpuff Girls? What is that?
Chemical X.
Chemical X, dude. Oh my gosh, how could I
Guys,
have
if you
Compound
don't
X?
know what to call it, just call it topic and then X.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
still
Elon
disappointed that
did that with
Fast
a
and
whole
Furious
platform.
10 wasn't Fast and Furious Fast 10 your seatbelt.
Fast 10 your seatbelt?
They
Oh
should
my dude,
have, but
you
they didn't. They
can't,
just called it Fast X.
dude, you can't be dropping these these puns on me like this. This is unbelievable. Fast
I
10
can't
your
take credit for
seatbelt.
that one. That one's been around for a long time.
Oh my gosh, I guess I never saw that one, dude. That's a great meme. Fast
Yeah,
10
it kind
your
of it
seatbelt.
circulated. I think more when they were doing like 8 and 9, and they were kind of speculating that 10 would be a thing, and they're like, I'm gonna be so disappointed if they don't call it Fast 10 your seatbelt.
It's so stupid. I love it, dude. They should have done it. It's like the snakes on a plane thing. Like they completely embraced the whole the how ridiculous the idea of a film with Samuel Jackson being on a plane with venomous snakes saying, "I've had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane," and then so they decided, okay, we're gonna go from making it a PG-13 movie to making it an R and refilming these scenes with Samuel L. Jackson. Of course, the internet people didn't show up and it flopped, but just actually embracing it was like one of the early signs of filmmaking actually embracing internet culture like that. It's so
Marvel
hilarious.
tried that. They tried it with Mobius.
Oh, dude, what they do with Morbius, other than I know it's a terrible movie
It's
and
a
there's a
terrible
lot of
movie,
memes.
but they pulled it out of theaters after like I think it was like 2 weeks or something because it was doing so horribly, and then the internet was doing the whole "it's Morbin time" meme, and then they thought it was a positive thing and put it back in theaters, and nobody went to watch
uh,
it.
of course,
It's like,
it's
oh, it's they're making
Morbin
memes about it. It
time.
must be popular. Let's get more money. And then no, no, they did not figure out that
Oh
we
my
were all
gosh.
just messing with them the entire time
Is it bad that it
because
makes
it
me
was
want to watch
so
Power
goddamn
Rangers right
stupid.
now?
Do what?
I said, is it bad that it makes me want to watch Power Rangers right now? It's morphin time.
I think that's where it came
It's
from
Mormon
because
time.
it's Morbin
I
time,
mean,
and then he morbed all over those guys,
he morphed. Yeah,
and that's been a
Morb's
joke
gonna
ever
do what a Morb's
since.
gonna do. Dude, Jared Leto's just too much. The dude's a weirdo. He's been in some great movies, but he's very strange, and I think that it's
Apparently,
not
he's a
an
method
accident.
actor.
Well, I don't think it's an accident that he has like some, from what I understand, some sort of cult-like following, and the fact that if you look at him in a painting of Jesus next to each other and you squint, you're like, that's the same dude. Like, I do not see a difference right here with the beard and everything. Like, he looks and I think that he's going for something. And I don't know. He's always just been the guy in Fight Club that got his face smashed in when Edward Norton wanted to destroy something beautiful, and the dude who loses his arm in Requiem for a Dream from heroin. Like, that's who I see him as. I mean, that's just my weird, late
Hey, on the
'90s,
plus
early
side, you don't
2000s
see him as
take.
the Joker.
No, oh my god, I forgot. And then he has the tattoo on his hand, so that when he covers his mouth, there's still a mouth there. Oh,
Yeah, it has
dude.
like the rage written across his forehead. It's like this isn't the Joker. I don't know who this is. This isn't Joker.
Yeah, it was definitely. I mean, we all loved what Heath Ledger did with it, but he
Well,
wasn't
yeah, but
even
Heath Ledger
around.
took it as like an anarchy sort of thing. It was like it's not about the crime. It's about sending a message. It's about just messing with people and pushing them to their limits.
I'm really interested, and I
Although when you
haven't
think
done a
about it,
lot of
all three of
research.
the Nolan movies had their own versions of breaking the bat.
Okay, I'm with you on this one. I know the one in the last one where he literally
Yeah, the
physically
physical
breaks the
one.
bat.
But that's always been
Yeah,
a thing. That's always been a thing since Bane's been a thing. It was the
yeah,
man who
that
broke
was
the bat. But
yeah,
I mean, you think about it, the first one is about Batman coming to terms with, you can't save everybody kind of thing. And that
yes,
really takes a toll on him through the movie. It's like, I want to save all these people. I want to save Gotham. And then at the end, he kind
yeah,
of
and
comes to that realization. It's like, I can't save everybody, but I don't have to save you. And that's
yes,
kind of like
and that's
his
how he
first. That's
kills
kind of like
Ra's
the
al
first
Ghul.
breaking down of what the bat stands for.
hmm
And then Joker is, breaking the bat mentally. How far can I push Batman before he actively does something he is sworn never to do?
Indeed,
It's
like
like,
pick
how
up a
far can
gun.
I push this man before he kills me? Because I know
Okay.
that even though I'll be dead, he'll be racked with guilt the entirety of his life. Like, I will have ruined this man.
Do you think if Heath Ledger had not died after filming The Dark Knight, do you think that the third movie would have been different? Do you
I
think that they would have
don't
brought the
know.
Joker back?
I don't know. I think Nolan had all three kind of planned out already. I mean, it definitely feels like he had an idea of what he wanted these three movies to be. I mean, there
Indeed.
is a follow through storyline.
Well, I read the Bane comic books. I forget the name of that storyline. I have them on my bookshelf in my room, but they're
Isn't it literally
they're
just the man who
interesting.
broke the bat?
Um, oh geez, there's three of them, and they get a little bit more ridiculous as they go on. I'm not a big fan of that era of comics, but it's good. But I liked what they did with the Nolan film, making it more that he's a terrorist, and what he did with the stock exchange and some other stuff. There's some really interesting dialogue that he has in that movie, even though it's muffled. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, some people have some interesting takes on Nolan's characters, like what he did to Batman's voice from the first one to the second one, and obviously the Bane mask in the third one. Obviously, he dialed the Batman voice a little bit back, but I mean, some interesting choices there. I mean, I really liked those. I'm a huge Batman fan, and I liked those movies. I like how grounded they were. But this newest Batman film, a lot of people immediately were like, "Who the hell wants to watch the dude from Twilight for 3 hours pretend to be Batman?"
You mean the
He's
guy
in a
who absolutely hated being Edward so much he portrayed him as much of a psychopath as he could?
yeah, hilarious. I actually really like Robert Pattinson as an actor. I've seen a lot of his other movies. I
He
think
was
that he's
also
really
Cedric Diggory
talented.
in the Harry Potter series.
Yeah, and I thought he was great in Tenet. He was the most interesting character next to that piece of wood that is John David Washington, who I like. I didn't know that he was Denzel Washington's kid. I
The
wish
last
he
name didn't
had.
give it away.
Well, I'm Washington, but I mean, if he had just the slightest bit of his father's talent, I mean, he's a good actor. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure that he will get better as time goes by. Denzel's one of the greats. I mean, he's one of the goats, and I
He's
did
the
not pick up
equalizer,
that
and
his
that's probably one of the best movies he's made in the last decade.
Oh, dude. I mean, I could just name. I mean, Training Day. Anybody? I mean, he's just goes berserk that whole movie, and he's fantastic. I mean, he's been around for forever. I like Denzel a lot. But yeah, Nolan. I think that Christopher Nolan made some really interesting choices. But I really liked the new Batman movie because if you watch the first 10 minutes, just the intro sequence of that movie, and I'm not sure if you have Fox, but it's fantastic. It does the Batman thing that I've wanted to see in every Batman movie. And Nolan had elements of this in the other movies, so don't get me wrong. But it immediately dropped in the beginning of it with a voiceover. You're seeing this guy weave through a crowd, and he's got a backpack on. You're seeing criminals do their thing, but then it really shows the effect that Batman has on criminals, which is fear. That's his whole thing. Is that he scares the shit out of people, and he's the world's greatest detective. These are the two things that really make up Batman. And then so in this, he scares the bejesus out of people, and they actually show him doing legitimate detective work throughout the entire movie. And I really appreciated that because like I said, there's elements of that in the Nolan's movies, but at the end of the day, he's the world's greatest detective. That's his moniker. I mean, I want to see him figuring shit out. That's what makes the comic book
It
so
kind of makes you
interesting.
wonder if he didn't have all the money, would he still be, Batman essentially?
Yes.
Like, would he have still
Well,
taken up the mantle in some sense?
that's the dichotomy of being a nerd is that when you pick up something like its original iteration, which is comic books of Batman, which have been around since the 30s, there's been lots of different versions and
Well, he killed
variations of
people in
how
the 30s
people.
and 40s. He carried a freaking
Oh yeah,
pistol.
it's awesome. And there's even one from the 60s where he had a rainbow cape. That's some wild shit.
Hell, he
But
fought
most,
fucking Cthulhu.
I don't know about that one,
That
but I do
that's an
love that.
actual thing. It's a graphic novel called The Doom That Came to Gotham.
That sounds
It's
fantastic, and I
Batman,
will look
essentially
that up.
Batman versus Lovecraft.
Okay, I love it. The Batman Vampire three-parter, fantastic. If you can pick up that comic arc, I actually have it if you want to borrow it, Fox. It is fantastic. It is so gory, so many different characters, how the Joker actually affects the storyline in that. But yeah, dude, Dracula, it's great. And everybody dies. It's so fantastic. It's one of those one-off. I forget what they called them in DC, but they're like the one-off storylines. But out of all the different iterations of Batman, I really enjoyed this newest movie because of its. I feel like there was service to a different part of the Batman character that really hasn't been fully represented in the movies. I just really liked its interpretation. Yeah, it's a little long in the tooth. The entire thing's at night. It's got a really dark palette. Paul
Well, would it be
Dano as
Batman if
the
it was during
Riddler
the
was
day?
freaky. Huh?
Would it really be Batman if it was set during the day?
Well, no, but there's next to no Bruce Wayne scenes in this movie other than him attending a funeral and a couple other things. There's not a lot of scenes that are him as Bruce Wayne. Yeah, just a lot of him being Batman, which is great, don't get me wrong, but they don't do a lot of Bruce Wayne in this movie. Nolan definitely did that and played up the Playboy angle and a lot of the other stuff. And this, I mean, I get why people say that he's a little emo Batman because he's nowhere like okay. What's his face? What is the name of the actor who played Batman in the Nolan movies? I am
Christian
totally
Bale.
drawing a Christian Bale. Thank you. Oh, is it Doc right? I'm gonna
I
meltdown on Terminator
honestly, from
Salvation.
before the Batman movies, I always knew him as the guy who played Quinn in Reign of Fire.
Oh yeah, dude, he was great in that movie, and it has Gerard Butler and Matthew McConaughey. It's got a
Matthew
triple
McConaughey
on
gets
that
eaten
movie.
by a dragon.
Dude, and early Gerard Butler before 300. It's great to see him in older movies. You're like, dude, I didn't know he was in this. Um, but Christian Bale was 220 pounds when he filmed uh, Batman Begins. And then after that movie, he did. no, sorry, before that movie, he did The Machinist in 2002,
And he was a
and
skeleton.
he was completely emaciated, had an apple a day, and then he bulked up to 220 for Batman, and then he did Rescue Dawn, a movie about an American POW. Him and Steve Zahn did it. It's a very interesting movie, but he loses a shitload of weight in that movie, and then after that he did The Dark Knight, and I believe he was like 240, 235 somewhere in there, and just the crazy fluctuations in weight. And of course, he got fat to play Dick Cheney in that one movie, if I'm not mistaken. So he's been all over the place with his weight. But
How did the human body even handle that?
well, well,
I mean,
just
you
I
really
think
think about
most
it, the human
people.
body be falling apart from that kind of stuff.
Well, I think that most people, when they think of Batman, they think of the Nolan movies, which is completely fair. I mean, they made over $1 billion at the box
At least
office,
not thinking of George
and
Clooney.
well, yeah, no shit, or Val Kilmer. But
uh,
unless we're just talking about Batman lips.
yeah.
uh, but if you compare, and especially with him next to Tom Hardy in the third movie, who is insanely huge in that movie, he bulked up gnarly for that. Most people's current iteration of what they think Batman is extremely large man. I mean, he is, from what I understand, Christian Bale's over 6 feet tall, and Robert Pattinson is not that. So I think that's a lot. That's really hard for people to get over to
Well, I
want
think
to
it's also
actually get
because we
into this
also had
movie.
Ben Affleck Batman for Zack Snyder.
Oh, but I really like that one. I wish
That
that they
one
would have
felt
got to
more
do more
like a
stuff with it.
Batman, like the way the movie portrayed him, and a lot of people will say, it's a this isn't Batman, this is a terrible movie. The way I see it is Batman vs Superman. Batman's been at that for nearly 20 years at that point. He is not young. He is not the idealistic Batman he was. He's been doing crime fighting for 20 years. Lost sidekicks, lost friends and family. I mean, at that point, it's like, how long do you really go before he breaks?
Well, I believe it's because they were going for the Frank Miller Batman. If
They
you
were.
read,
They were going for the Frank Miller comic version of The Dark Knight Returns.
yes, and which is fantastic. And if you read that, Batman is absolutely ruthless in that. I mean, he says literally, I don't have the energy to jump and dodge and dive and do all the things like I used to. So instead of trying to artfully knock people out and do as little damage as possible, he literally just snaps people's arms and legs to disable them from combat because he's not worried, because he's like, dude, I'm too old for this shit. I don't really want to be doing it, but somebody's going to get the job done. And I'm the only person that's going to do this. And he keeps pushing. And he was in retirement for 10 years and then comes out. So I actually really liked, especially with the 9/11 imagery that they pulled out for the beginning of the Batman versus Superman movie, which is not a perfect movie, but if you actually
Now, there's a
watch the
lot of flaws
director's
to it, but
cut,
it's more. A lot of the people who hate on it really just didn't really understand it, I come to find. I
oh,
mean,
I
it's when you
totally.
look deeper into it. I mean, you look at Lex's actual plan and why Batman kind of thinks the way he does.
Mhm.
Because like
Well,
he's
and he's
he's been around for so long, he's seen what these meta-humans can do. He doesn't know that Superman's a good guy.
hmm
As far as
and
he's
I think
concerned, someone with that kind of power could pretty much destroy the planet if he ever got so upset. Which is
I
why
think
injustice is such a huge thing.
Jesse Eisenberg was a creative choice for Lex Luthor, and I don't hate on it. I don't think it's the perfect interpretation. Again, mine is the Christopher Reeve ones that I used to watch when I was a kid.
Yes.
So, I mean, it is really
I will
hard in
say the
my
new
head.
Superman actually looks a lot like the original Christopher Reeves. I mean, it's
All right,
like
you're
it's
not.
almost a dead ringer for the guy.
I haven't seen who the new Superman's gonna be. I heard about him. I really liked Henry Cavill. I thought he was
Yeah,
great.
everybody loves Henry
Um,
Cavill.
Yeah, I even thought Brendan Small was interesting. I mean, they literally just picked him because he looked like Superman. I thought he was an interesting choice. That movie could have been a lot better than what it was, but I forget. It was this Superman
David
Returns.
Cornsweet is the new Superman.
David Cornsweet. Let me look this guy up.
Yeah,
He
he's gonna be playing. the new Superman in 2025, Superman Legacy, alongside Rachel Brosnan. Bros, I can't pronounce this. Brosnahan, who was playing Lois Lane.
Interesting. Dude, this guy looks like Superman. He looks like Clark Kent. That's interesting. Well, I hope he's a good actor. I mean, I don't know. I don't. The thing is about Henry Cavill is he's a talented actor and he actually gives a shit about nerd stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I think that it's an inspired choice. Hopefully, this guy will do something interesting with it. But going back to Lex Luthor, like I said, my idea of Lex Luthor as a kid, he was played by
Oh, he was in
the
House of Cards,
who was in House of Cards.
the new Superman.
Oh, he was.
Yeah,
I thought.
he was a guest star in House of Cards. He was in Pearl, We Own This City, The Politician,
I thought you were
Lady
talking
of the
about because
Lake,
Kevin
or
Spacey is in House of Cards and he played Lex Luthor in Superman Returns, and I was like, "Is that what you're getting at?" No, I was talking about Gene Hackman. Like my idea of the best Lex Luthor is, as far as the movie version, is Gene Hackman, dude. You can't beat the Hackman. Come
yeah,
on, dude. He's fantastic in those movies.
yeah. Although I do kind of like a lot of people probably go off the idea that Superman's whole disguise thing is pretty stupid. It's just I just wear a pair of glasses. It's like there's a lot more to it than that if you really look at it. It's that
I
he has this whole entirely different personality when he's being Clark Kent.
well, yeah,
I mean, his whole
obviously.
thing
Like,
is, he's this little country town guy. He enamored with the big city kind of thing. He's like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm doing. He's the bumbler kind of thing
mhm.
is kind of how he was portrayed. I think in both early comics as well as the early movies. He was essentially, the fish out of water kind of guy. He's like, oh, this is you grew up in a small town. Here now you're in the big city, and he's like, would you really expect that guy to be Superman?
Obviously not.
This country bumpkin with his little silly antics. Do you really think that would be Superman?
Well, I think it was to represent, like obviously he's changing, just like how he used to run into a phone booth, and then now, if you had him do that now, people, younger kids would be like, "What is that thing that
I don't
he's
think phone
going
booths even
into to
exist
change?"
anymore.
Exactly, and so they'd be like, "What the hell is that all about? What is, like, how does that transformation even work?" It'd be like a superhero being reliant on a fax machine in order to get his powers up. People be like, "What? What is this? How does
Yeah,
this?" You're like you
we
need a
do still use
beeper.
fax machines. I will say that.
Or I guess maybe a beeper would be a better thing. Like
I think wasn't there? Didn't Batman have a beeper at some point?
a beeper?
I'm pretty sure he would have had something. I mean, besides like the Bat communicator, that kind of stuff. But
I
I'm pretty sure
mean,
like Bruce Wayne version had like an actual like beeper thing in one of the earlier shows.
oh, that's hilarious. I don't know. I'm sure that he had some sort of readout. He had in one of the, I'm trying to, I believe
Because
it's
like in
Batman.
the animated series that came out in the 2000s with I can't remember his name, but it's after the animated series that everybody knows. It was a newer version, but
Yeah,
he had
not
like
as.
he had an actual like cell phone thing like we have now, but it would start displaying the bat symbol and beeping whenever something was going down.
Oh, that's interesting. He had like a beeping icon.
Yeah, it was actually like a beeping icon, and it would go boop boop boop.
I've never actually watched that.
I would
That
say
I mean,
watch it just because it's different from the animated series that we all grew up with, but
dude,
at the
I
same
know.
time, there's a lot of cool stuff in it.
As cool as Ron Perlman being Clayface, I doubt it.
No, probably not.
Dude, that's a hard one to
And
beat.
hate on Mark Hamill all you want, but that's the Joker's voice.
Yeah, oh, dude. Yeah,
The
no
guy may
kidding.
be a conservative douchebag now, but
Okay,
he's
conservative douchebag.
I don't know. He's one of those.
Well,
He's
I thought he
become one
was
of
a
those
liberal
people.
douchebag for a while.
I don't know.
Now he's a conservative. I don't know what
I don't know. I
where
don't keep
Mark
up with
Hamill
it.
is on politics. I just thought he was more left wing for and not to laugh at whatever distinction. I just think it's hilarious because literally last time I heard about Mark Hamill in politics, I heard he was a left wing douchebag, and now to hear that he's a right wing douchebag, hilarious.
I don't know. I think
I
he
have
tries
no
to be
idea.
center.
I don't know. He's just the voice of the Joker to me. Oh, my dude, he talk about a guy who got a rough thing after he got in that car accident. Uh, After they had made the first Star Wars movie, dude, people treated him like shit.
Yeah.
I saw. Did you ever see any of those old interviews? I saw this. Somebody put together this compilation online of him when he was younger talking about that, and damn, were they brutal about it. They're like, oh yeah, basically going like, yeah, like your face is fucked up, but it's kind of hard to tell, but not really. But you're just like, dude, Jesus, like they're just saying this stuff, and I mean, it was. I not only physically, but I'm sure like to a bit emotionally devastating to do that, especially when you're the lead guy on one of the biggest movies at that point in all time, and then people are like, "Yeah, dude, your face. What's up with your face?" Like, oh my god, that must have just been gnarly to deal with. I mean,
Yeah, I
that.
don't imagine how well that would work. I mean, but at the
Oh,
same
dude,
time, I
that
mean,
just
you
must have
also
been
had
brutal.
Harrison Ford, who was not exactly the biggest Star Wars guy, even when he was in it.
Oh, dude, Harrison Ford, the man. Dude, talk about a dude who I wish I could embody that level of not giving a shit. Like, could you? I mean, I believe Harrison Ford at the end of the day will be my spirit animal because I want to channel that level of like not giving a fuck. Like, I'm just gonna go live in Wyoming, fly my own plane, have a
And crash
pure
it.
stare. Yeah, and then not give a shit about anything. Oh yeah, you want me in this movie? Yeah, well you better pay me a shitload of money, and I'm not gonna be nice. I'm not gonna be anybody's friend while I'm here. And then he's just like, yeah, it's all make believe anyway, kid. Like, like he was totally all these people. From what I understand, that were on the set of Star Wars would be like, "Oh my god, dude, it's Harrison Ford, that's Han Solo, blah blah blah." Like, how do I get into character? And he's like, it's all fucking make believe. And he's just like, dude, what? You're just shattering all these young actors' dreams. I love it, dude. He's so grumpy. It's fantastic.
He is the
I,
grumpy old man.
dude, it's great. What? And people act like old dudes aren't allowed to be grumpy like that, and I think it's hilarious. I think he should be grumpy like that. He's allowed to. He's a grandfather. Did he's allowed to be mean?
Speaking of not giving a fuck, apparently, according to a book that was put out, as well as her own interviews, Brie is very tired of playing Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel.
Oh god,
Like
Brie
she
Larson.
actually resents the character at this point, and I
What's
can't blame her.
okay? Uh, I understand that she got a lot of internet hate, and that must be tough. But to a certain degree, she has doesn't seem like she's ever publicly come to terms with the fact that she's brought any of it on herself, and that there's a lot of these people that don't get that. And maybe it's the sphere that they're in, or whatever their feeds in, or whatever that is depriving them of being able to see. But it's like at the end of the day, you're responsible for yourself. Like if you say things like that in public, a lot of people are going to hold you accountable for what you say. And if you are playing somebody that they really like as a piece of
I
media,
wouldn't
like
say
there's a
like,
lot of,
considering Captain Marvel wasn't even popular in the comics.
well,
The
she
only
just
reason the
it
movie
means a
did
lot to
so
some
well,
people
the only reason the movie did so well was because it
because
was
it came
required
out.
reading between Infinity War and Endgame.
Yes, and they said that you needed to watch it,
Yeah,
and
you have to watch
I
this in
told,
order to understand what's going to happen.
and
And
she
that's
was
the
only in the
only
first
reason
couple
that movie
minutes.
did well.
Yeah,
I mean, just look at
yeah.
the current box office expectations for the Marvels right now. It's bad. I mean,
Well,
it's around like maybe 30 million.
I just find it funny that she's like, I find that she would be resentful of the role when it's like, dude, you made a shitload of money off of that, and the only reason that it like all you, dude, just put a fucking smile on. You're an actor. You can pretend, right? What you can't pretend in
That's
public.
literally their job.
That
As Gary
yeah, and
from
I'm like,
Nerdbronic says, they're professional make believe.
yeah, and it's like they don't like that, and it's like, but that's your profession, though. Like part of your job is not just always being in front of that camera. Part of it is this whole perception and how you sell the movie and all this stuff. And people don't like to watch people who are assholes in public and who are rude to people and stuff like that. Nobody likes that. So
Exactly.
I don't. I mean, there's a big difference. They used to say, back in the day that, the bad boys and stuff like that. But it's like, dude, nobody likes watching somebody be an asshole for no reason. It's just like, is that a personal attack or something? There's a reason why that whole thing is a meme. It's like that was your reaction to somebody asking you a question. Like that's in public on a red carpet. Like that's bizarre.
To be
I,
fair, the
I
red carpet has seen a lot of idiotic statements in the last couple of years,
well, you
in at
can
least the
tell the
last decade.
people. Well, you can tell the people who are generally um, like thankful for the position that they're in and what they would like to do and stuff like that. Like, we were just talking about Henry Cavill earlier. That comes to mind just
Yeah,
because he's like. The reason he stepped away from The Witcher was not because he didn't like playing Geralt. He didn't like what they were doing to the point where he said, "I am not going to participate in something that is going to remove
actively
itself
destroy
that
this
far."
character.
Yeah, I'm not going to
It wasn't
participate
even
in
The
that,
Witcher
which
at
is
that point. It was
completely,
Syrian friends.
yeah, which I
And then
can
they turned it.
completely respect.
What the hell was this sidekick's name? Began with a J.
Oh,
The
the
Bard.
you're talking, yeah, the who's hilarious. I mean, I did like the
Yeah, but they
bard.
turned him from a womanizer into being gay.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't finish the third
be
season. I
glad.
watched.
I don't think anybody finished the third season.
Yeah, I watched a bit of it, and I was like, "There's next to no Witcher in this Witcher show."
Yeah, that was one of the reasons
uh,
he. Apparently, he fought a lot with the showrunner who wanted to make it essentially what they got with Witcher Blood Origin,
hmm
which nobody watched either,
yeah.
because one, it had no Geralt, and two, it was shit. It was the same Hollywood drivel they've been pushing with the message and everything like that.
I just don't get how they shit the bed with stuff like that. Like you
You
got
have the
what
source
made the
material.
Yeah, I just don't get it. And they took a really interesting approach with how they told the story in the first season, which was very confusing. And they could have done it more straightforward. I found it interesting and I was on board, but then it's like, what turn are you taking the show in? Like what is it's the same thing with Westworld. The first season was great, and then it's like, all right, cool. Where are we going with what the even is this show? Like, what am I watching now? What is this drivel? It becomes unwatchable, and it could have been because they killed Anthony Hopkins. And all, and, if all's fair is fair, he's so great. It's kind of hard for a show to keep going
Yeah,
after losing such a great
he's
cast member.
definitely one of the few guys that if you watch like Silence of the Lambs, he's
Oh,
really the most interesting character in the entire movie, and all he does is stand in a glass cell.
and he's only on screen in that over 2 hour movie for 18 minutes.
And
He
he's the
only has
best part of the
18
movie.
minutes of screen time.
Just watching it, those two main characters interact is the best part of the movie.
Well, hold on. Let's give some credit to the. Was she a great big fat person? Well, I mean, that is one of the best lines in movie history, and one of the most quotable lines is that weirdo at the end of the movie when Jodie Foster's asking him questions about the girl, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, was she a great big fat person?" And Jodie Foster just immediately go, "All right, this is the psycho." Pulls out a gun and shoots him in the face. I mean, as we all would do.
Definitely.
Oh, for what? It's like, no, dude, you got to get put down just for having that voice.
Oh, I
Like,
fully
no
agree on
way.
that one.
Dude, there's no way this is not the bad guy. I've seen too many movies. Listen to his voice. He's obviously the bad guy. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why. A lot of the movies in like the horror movies in like 70s and 80s all had that red herring thing. Where it's like, oh, it's obviously this other crazy guy you ran into,
It's like,
and then it's like,
no.
no, he dies like halfway through the movie. So what was the point? But
I did
also,
really
oh
like
god, it
Silence
also
of the
reminds
Lambs.
me. I remember in the 90s watching a pup named Scooby Doo, and every single time they had a reoccurring character literally named Red Herring.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And oh, every single time at the end, Fred would always be, it's got to be Red Herring. I think I learned
I,
more about red herring and film tropes from that alone than any movie I had been watching at the time.
Dude, you
Because
want
every
to
time
talk
it's like,
about
you weenie, it wasn't me. And the one time it was, Fred was never allowed to actually say his name in the entire episode. And it was driving
dude.
him insane to the point where he broke down at the end of the episode, crying and saying, I knew it was him.
I learned about the film trope red shirts, which comes from
Star Trek.
Star Trek. Yeah, that all the red shirts die because every time they would beam down to a planet with a bunch of red guys wearing red shirts, they always get murdered by whatever the indigenous population
Well, to
is.
be fair, the red shirt was the security officers, so they kind of
Yeah,
were supposed to put themselves in danger to keep the rest of the crew alive.
yeah, but we all know that nobody with a gold shirt was going to get smoked. Only dudes with red shirts. Hilarious. There
Unless it
was
was
this
like
game.
some major character arc kind of thing.
Yes. That well, I mean Chekhov, and
Chekhov's gun.
well, um, what's his face? Chekhov and Mr. Scott both wore red shirts and they never died. But anyway, I learned from this game. I believe it was King's Quest 7 PC, early '90s PC game.
Oh,
I played this,
yes.
and there is a king
The
that dies
epitome of
fairly early.
puzzle solving, what the fuck.
Very weird,
To get
very
through the
strange game.
stairway, you have to throw a pie at a Yeti's face and then knock him out a window.
Yes,
Go figure
well,
that one
that's
out.
simple. That's '90s PC game puzzle solving. Don't hate. But this one king gets who is uh, he has like the head of a lion, if I remember. Anyway, he dies, and his name, I looked it up, and it translated to red shirt. And he gets assassinated in the game, and I didn't get it. And I was like, Dad, why is he in his like red shirt in Latin? And I was like, what? I was like, why is his name red shirt? And he's like, oh, that comes from Star Trek. That's because the dudes in red shirts get murdered all the time. Like, oh, hilarious! And then so that was literally how I found out about the trope of red shirts was from this strange '90s PC game. It was the seventh one. There's a lot of those King's Quest games. I not too long ago
I think
actually
there were
watched a
like 9 or
playthrough.
10 of them in total.
Yeah, I watched their Sierra Interactive. I watched a playthrough on some of those not too long ago. Very interesting. Very,
Definitely
very
very
interesting.
strange games. Let me see here. Because there was a another thing I recently watched from IGP doing one of those Sony Dreams games.
Hmm.
Let me see if I can find the name. But one of the things that constantly happens is you run into these like giant skeletal figure kind of things who always speak in Latin, and then if you translate it, it's like people think Latin is deep.
That's
It's called Lake
hilarious.
Juniper.
Oh, that is so funny. Now I
And
have
it's like
because I have the first
it's like is
PSVR,
this
but I haven't
long
played
Latin
Dreams.
phrase. It's like what does this mean? What is it? Does it mean something significant? Is it something important? And then you look it up, and it's literally just like, yeah, people who read Latin think it's deep, and that's it.
Oh my, yeah, that's hilarious. The different translations of those. That almost reminds me of Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail when they're reading the what's carved into the stone, and the guy carves. And then he's like, he actually carved art, like as he was getting eaten by the dragon. He carved his painful shouts. So hilarious.
If I recall, there was a quest in the original Divinity game that you were supposed to take a letter from some skeleton guy to his wife, and he stutters throughout his entire speech thing when he's talking to you. But if you read the
Okay.
letter, he stutters in the letter. Like, how did you do that? How did that even
That's
happen?
hilarious. Then he stutters in the letter. Oh my god, he puts his he's like, well, I can only write how I talk.
It's still more believable than the guy on Loki.
Oh, which
Jonathan
one? Owen
Major's
Wilson?
character, Kang.
Oh, Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah, that. Not really much of a conqueror.
Yes, I've heard about him.
He kind of got
I
beaten
I'm
by Ant-Man of all people.
Oh, really? Oh
That
yeah,
was
the
that.
Ant-Man Quantumania. I haven't
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one either.
I
Yeah,
will say though,
Jonathan.
if you look at here's the science portion of the podcast. If you look at by sheer mass, What species would you say is the most successful species on the planet by mass, like
Would it
sheer
be ants?
numbers?
Would it be ants?
Yes, it's ants.
Would it? Uh,
If an
so that's
alien species came down and was looking at, okay, what is the most successful species on this planet, it would be ants. They live on
interesting.
every continent except Antarctica, and there's literally an uncountable amount of them on the planet.
Well, isn't there? Wouldn't you also say, if depending on how what your scale is, that one of the most successful life forms is actually algae, because it is a life form. It's
That is true.
uh
It is
yes,
a it's a living, breathing thing, though it's mostly
and it
bacteria,
covers a large portion of the planet.
especially when the blooms occur,
Yes,
and they kill pretty much anything around them.
red tide.
Yeah, they
I
are
got the
one of the
red
most
tide.
dangerous. But yeah, if
I
you look
don't
at
live
like
in
from
Texas,
an
but I
outside
hear a red
perspective,
tide.
humans really aren't that successful on this planet. We haven't been around the longest. We definitely have destroyed more of it than any other species on the planet.
It depends on what scale you mean, because if you look at, I mean, we're the only intelligent species that's ever, I mean, some primitive ones, like monkeys have used some primitive tools and things like that, but that's
Ravens
what
use
separates
tools.
us is our, well, yes, but what separates us is our opposable thumbs use of tools
Yeah,
and like our much larger brain
actually,
compared
that's
to the
kind of a
size of our
misnomer.
body. Really?
With a bigger brain does not mean smarter.
Well,
If
from
you
what
look
I
at if you
understand,
look at Einstein's brain, it was actually smaller than a regular human's brain. It
interesting.
meant that his thoughts were able to be transferred much faster. Everything
There's
was
less
more
surface
connected.
area. That's
Well,
funny.
it was there was less time that the signals needed to take to travel from spot to spot.
I've never read anything about that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I um
So it's
but from what
theoretical that if we had slightly smaller brains, we'd probably be a lot more intelligent.
well, I heard, and again, this is from hearing this on Joe Rogan's podcast. He said that there's this book called Food of the Gods, and
Yes.
the contention that the scientist makes, from what I understand, I have not read this book, but his contention is that there is a certain period of time, it's like 1 million years or so, that the human brain triples its size or something along there. That it gets significantly larger, and this scientist's contention is that monkeys, due to essentially climate change, were forced out of the trees onto the ground to look for a new source of food. And when they went down, monkeys are very curious, and they'll flip over piles of shit and they'll find fungus and eat it. And so this scientist's contention is that these monkeys, or Neanderthals or whatever, were eating psilocybin mushrooms and tripping their balls off, and it allowed their consciousness to expand, and it allowed for this great expansion of the human brain in a much shorter period of time, which is a very interesting. I mean, obviously, I don't know how true any of that is or
Well, a
whatever,
lot of
but
science right now points more to the fact that it's because we walk upright and that we ate meat.
yes, I
We
know
have the
that ET
protein
is a
and the
big
bodily
deal.
structure to enable our brains to grow and our bodies to actually more adapt and be more useful alongside that.
But yeah, as far as success of biological species, when we were talking earlier, one of the scales, we're the only ones that's ever left the planet
Well, we're the
like
only ones
that.
that want to leave the planet.
But you know what I mean.
I'm
Like we're
pretty
the
sure
only
the
ones that have
monkeys and the
achieved
dogs we
space
sent up to
travel.
space didn't want to be there.
Oh, no. Oh, what was the name of the first dog in space that the Russians sent
Uh,
up?
I think
Um,
it began with an N.
Luca? Was it an N? No, dude. I'm pretty sure. I think it was like. Okay,
Let
hold
me
on.
look.
First dog in space. Oh, Laika.
Yeah.
Laika. Yeah,
I don't
and
know
she
why I was
died of
thinking
heat
Nika or something like
exhaustion.
that.
Yeah, those Russian bastards had no plan. I sorry, those commie Soviet bastards had no plan on bringing the dog back. They had no plan for re-entry. They had no plan at all. They were just seeing if they could, and they shot Laika into the space. And I mean, into the history books. Obviously, I'm still talking about this dog, and you can see a picture of it on the internet. But seriously, they had no plan to get the dog back. And that's one of the big differences between American design and the space program versus the Soviet
Yeah,
design.
we kind of
They're
wanted
like,
them to come back.
yeah, they aren't giving a shit. They're just shooting a dog up into space. They're like, yep, made it. It survived. I bet you a person can now. God, why do you think Yuri was the first student in space? Because they didn't give a shit if he lived or died. They're just meeting minimum requirements and shot his ass into space.
For the glory of the Communist Union, I shall die in space.
Yeah, dude. Oh, that's like the oh, what is that astronaut? He said that his greatest achievement was being the furthest person to ever get away from Ohio in
Well,
human
there's a few
history.
of them, so. What is it about
Oh my
Ohio
God.
that just makes astronauts? Because they all want to leave.
This is so funny. He's like, my greatest achievement was getting over 239,000 miles away from Ohio. Further than any human in history. Like, that is a good joke, dude. Holy hell. That
The
is a
guy
good
knew what he
joke.
was about. He was about getting
Oh my
away
God.
from Ohio.
Yeah, well, whatever you gotta do. Man, that,
Yeah, that's definitely the
there.
most do what you gotta do kind of guy.
Oh my gosh. Listening to that one, there was an astronaut that was on Joe Rogan's podcast that I caught a clip of, and he was talking about going out on these spacewalks and how they'll be out there for like 7 hours, and you won't realize that when you first get out there that you'll like lock up your hands and stuff like that, just gripping, and that you'll waste all of your dexterity in like the first hour because you're like, oh, because some people will come out and they'll get the sensation of falling, like they're falling towards the earth
Yeah,
and stuff.
that
And it's
minor
just like,
gravitational pull.
yeah, it's so weird. I can only imagine. I mean, space travel. I mean, there's a reason why they called it the final frontier. What happened to our imaginations, dude? I mean, come
Well, it
on.
went
We
into
had,
space and went under the ocean, where we should probably be first. Because if we
well,
can
I
build
mean,
something that can survive that far down in that kind of pressure, space shouldn't be a challenge.
dude, but isn't that where megalodons come from?
Only if your name is Jonah.
Megalodons. Yes, the megalodons live in the Marianas Trench under the thermal barrier. Oh my gosh, talking about jumping the shark, those Meg movies were hysterical. Oh
Well,
my
that's what
gosh,
they were
so
supposed to
funny.
be. They were supposed to be just dumb, fun entertainment,
Oh, so I
which probably
okay,
is
when
why
a
they were
movie
successful.
yes, when a movie fully commits to being as retarded as possible, I absolutely love it. It's like, okay, they would come up from that depth and not expand because of the lack of compression from being down there.
And just
These sharks would
explode.
be enormous. They'd be huge.
Well, they
Like
already
those
are. I think that's
blobfish.
the point.
Yeah, like look at a blobfish under the correct conditions where it's supposed to be in the ocean. It looks like a normal fish.
Well, here's
What would those
another one.
megalodons
How
look
big
like?
do you think an anglerfish is?
How big are anglerfish
That's what
physically?
I'm asking. How big do you think one is? Just looking at a picture of one, how big do you think it is?
Okay, the Finding Nemo movies would have me believe they would be smaller, but are they? I don't know. Larger than a bread box, larger than a football?
7 feet.
Like 7 feet?
Yeah.
Those things are 7 feet long.
Well, the females are, yes.
Jesus Christ,
A female
dude,
anglerfish
seven
could pretty much
feet?
eat a human torso.
I did not know that.
They are huge, and it's because of deep sea gigantism.
Deep sea gigantism. Can you explain that in a little bit? I mean, it sounds a
Giant
little bit
squid.
self-explanatory. You like because things live down there, the
There are
conditions
two
just
prevailing theories, so we're not really sure why it occurs.
okay.
But the ideas are basically heat distribution and distribution of mass. But the idea is the deeper down you go, the colder it obviously is. So the
Yes.
bigger the animal is, the better heat regulation it has.
Okay.
So that's why those
So
animals get so huge down there.
Because it's required by the environment to survive. It's just a
Exactly.
natural product of evolution.
That's one of the theories, yes.
Interesting.
But there's also, there's an upper limit. They don't get like megalodon sized. They
Well,
don't get to
isn't
like
that
40, 50 feet, except for the colossal squid, but that's also because it doesn't have bones.
well like crocodiles, great white sharks have largely been the same the entire time since the time of dinosaurs, which is a lot of people it's a misnomer about how long like how long dinosaurs were around and the time periods in which they were around.
Oh yeah,
But from what
humans
I
haven't even been
understand,
around for the blink of a cosmic eye.
yes. And it's like we're
Like
closer
if
to
an
a
alien species
T-Rex than a
was
T-Rex
looking
is to a.
at if an alien species was looking at our planet the same way we look at distant ones, they would be seeing dinosaurs. They wouldn't be seeing humans.
Yes.
They would be thinking
Oh,
all these radio signal stuff they're getting are from intelligent lizards.
That's,
Because that's
oh
how
my god.
long light takes to reach that far. So
There
remember, when you
is
wish upon a star, it's dead, just like your dreams.
oh good lord. There's this okay, let me get this book so I can tell you. I want to tell you a little bit about this book series that I found that you brought that up. There's this Chinese author and he wrote these three books and the first one's called The Three Body Problem. And they're getting ready to turn this into a Netflix series, from what I understand. But
Nice.
I'm telling you about this before the TV show comes out, so you know I was legit. Okay, the contentions of this book are really really interesting. So the three body problem. What this book is about is we are sending out signals from Earth, and then we're doing this in real life into space, trying to contact aliens. And this could actually be a really really bad idea
I
because you
think pretty
might
much every video
actually
game
get
ever has
some.
told us that.
Yes, because you might get something's attention that wants to murder you. And then so essentially what happens is we there's a woman in China whose family was killed by the Chinese communists and she takes it pretty personal. As she grows up, she becomes an engineer in one of these stations that's sending out signals into space. She sees that there's a difference in the sky one night, and she sends a signal out, but they actually get a reply. And the reply says, do not send out any more signals. There are dangerous things out in space looking for you. You will get murdered. Do not reply to this. And she decides, because she's so alienated from her government and from life and blah, 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 to reply. And essentially, she gets the attention of these aliens called the Trisolarians. And they have what's called the three body problem. There's three stars that are orbiting each other. And one of the problems in physics that you can look up is called three body problem, which is when three stars are orbiting around each other, they have a completely random cycle. They don't go in typical elliptical orbits or anything like that because they affect one another and it's
Right.
completely random. So this planet that these aliens live on, the Trisolarians, orbit these stars, and then so they go from having times where they are the correct distance from the sun and everything is habitable on their planet to extreme cold to extreme heat. And but they've developed enough technology to where they can travel through space. So what they decide to do is they because this woman lets them know of our existence, they like our planet, they send out a supercomputer that is etched, that's literally been folded through, and they explain this through quantum mechanics, like nine, like to the power of 9 or 12. It's a supercomputer that's been etched onto basically the face of an atom and shot through space. And essentially what it does is retards all scientific progress on the planet.
And
Essentially all.
just so YouTube is clear, this is the proper way of using that word.
Oh, the word retards. Yeah,
Yeah.
it stunts. I could say that. Earlier, I said it in the offensive way. That one was actually the correct way. um, but anyway, it it stunts all scientific progress. That scientists have seizures or commit suicide when they start doing anything that comes around stuff that would get them into space, or essentially be able to make any kind of difference in their defense of the planet, because it's going to take the Trisolarians about 400 years to
To reach
get to
Earth.
Earth. Yes. And then so what the book's about is how does Earth cope with knowing the fact that not only do aliens exist, but that they're hostile and that they're going to be here in 400 years to kill all of us and take our shit. And it's our fault too. And so it's actually a trilogy of books. The first one's called The Three Body Problem, the second one's called The Dark Forest, and the third one's called Death's End. It's actually made by a Chinese writer named, I don't know even I know how you say his last name, but his first name is spelled Cixin. Sixin? I don't know how you pronounce this. Sixin Liu,
Well, I think
Liu.
it's how they pronounce the X is usually like an SU kind of sound. Like
So is it Sixin
XIU
Liu?
is shoe.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but from what I understand, it's a uh, really, I haven't finished them. I started the first one and I found them the what they were getting at in the story to be very interesting. They won a bunch of different awards for science fiction, and I've been on a science fiction kick recently. But I haven't finished it. But I thought that the idea behind it was really interesting, and I don't want to give away too much or say too much, but
Go read it
I
essentially.
find go read it, but it will literally terrify the shit out of you as far as sending signals into space. Like the ideas that they propose in this book for what actual life would look like on other planets is such a dramatic departure from what this is. These aren't these nice aliens from Star Trek or even the Romulans, dude. These are aliens. The Trisolarians are more reasonable. There's types of aliens out here that, upon hearing signals, would use weapons that would completely destroy the planet as to not risk it ever developing into an actual threat.
Sounds about
Like
right.
they're dude, and then so the ideas of just sending out signals into space going, hey guys, what's
Hey,
going
we're here.
on?
Hey,
Kill
here's
us,
our
take our
exact
resources.
coordinates.
Oh man. I really liked, by the way, speaking of aliens taking over a planet, this one, much shorter commitment, my friends. Much shorter commitment. There is a movie or I should say, short film made by the guy who made Neil Blomkamp, who made District 9 and Elysium. He made a short film under Oat Studios, I believe is the company, that you can watch. It's even on YouTube. I forget the name of the actual short film, but it's got Sigourney Weaver in it, and it is a fantastic uh, view of what an alien species would do. These are more like lizard-like aliens who are harvesting the planet for natural resources, but in a biological sense. Very dark, very bleak. These things actually use mind control to make people do stuff, and they take it in some really interesting ways. But basically, it turns the what's left of the humans into what looks like the Taliban fighting against these lizards, because they're using IEDs and AKs, and it's just really ragtag people with flip flops types of deal fighting against lizards. It's great, but it's very high fidelity. Like it's a really clean short film. I will see if I can find it here
If you can find it,
real quick.
I will put it in a link in the description. And with
Absolutely.
that, we are, wow, we're an hour 13 at this point.
Holy cow. Okay, I found it. It's called Raqqa. Rakka. It's fantastic. It's got 25 million views on YouTube. Can't miss it.
And I will be sure to put that into our description so that people can find it. Yeah, Oat Studios Volume 1, Raka.
Yes, fantastic.
And it looks like there's no, never mind. That's just various parts of the actual video. I was gonna say it looks like there's a couple of videos.
Well, they have actually put out quite a bit of short films on there. If you have
Yeah,
a
I'm seeing that
Netflix
here.
subscription,
There's Firebase, Zygote, or Zygot. I don't know really how you pronounce that kind
hmm
of thing. All kinds of stuff in here.
well, they have a short film collection actually on Netflix that you can check out. Some really interesting stuff. There's some, um, I believe that's Raka is actually on the one that is on Netflix. There's some pretty interesting stuff. I just like how he's moved into trying to do some of these short film stuff with some interesting filmmakers in South Africa, where he's from.
Nice.
And the guy's a really interesting filmmaker. I really like what he does. Of course, I would love him to do more big studio movies and stuff like that. But I mean, come on! If you watch Raka and then you see all of a sudden Sigourney Weaver, the actress from Alien, show up in this shit, dude, it's amazing. I mean, come on. Typically, it takes James Cameron to get her to come out, dude, for some sci-fi stuff. This is just if you're a nerd and you like aliens and that kind of stuff, this is totally up your alley. You can't go wrong.
And with that, I think we'll make that our last topic for today
All right,
because we are at an hour 15.
good place to
So
kick it off.
yeah, I'd say that was a pretty good conversation.
Indeed, I had
And
fun.
if anyone else has other ideas, feel free to put them down in the comments. I do want to thank our two commenters from last time. Let me take
Yes,
a
yes.
look at their names real quick here.
Got to give some gratitude.
Yeah. So I do want to give thanks to, I think it's AI Bro Media, as well as the Carnivore Trucker for their two comments. So thanks to you guys. Like I said,
Thank
we
you.
had 10 views and 2 subscribers. I'm pretty happy about that.
Dude, that's way more than I thought we'd get. That's fantastic. Thank you very much for any time you have spent into listening to us.
And I will definitely, I'll probably mention it on the Geeks and Gamers Daily podcast. Just kind of say, hey, heads up, we did make another one. And I want to thank Jeremy and Ryan for kind of helping figure things out with this, with just kind of
Thank
like
you.
giving me ideas on what we should do logistically to try and set this kind of thing up. So, once again, I am Tobias,
And this is Red.
and we will talk to you guys later. Bye.
Okay, thanks.